this for my channel too, and I'm not having any luck with that.
So here is the thing. Hello, so we want to introduce you Dan Ruggiero from the Succubus channel, the only fucker on the internet who is knowing shit about succubi, and the guy who is really honest about everything. And it's really a pleasure to introduce you, Dan, because I watched all of the videos on your fucking channel, and none of your videos had any bullshit in it.
Thank you.
Pretty much say in 2 minutes more than majority of fuckers in 2 hours, because your honest goal is to educate the public on this controversial issue of sexual sorcery, succubi, Lilith, and incubi. And to me, it is really a pleasure to find you, to be honest, because you are a real deal. So let me introduce myself. I am Demetrius Triarius. I work with Lilith for 4 years on a daily basis. I summon her every day. I work with her spirits. I have 4 succubi, out of which 2 are actually attached to me, and other 4 are like concubines. And I watched your material, and I also saw on your astral body that you have multiple succubi. Like you have one main, you are kind of in a relationship, but you also had experiments with at least 3 other spirits, which are like lesser. You also have extremely deep relationship with Lilith, and you tapped into what I call the real mysteries of Lilith. So you kind of work with her for a long time, and she showed you some really, really controversial stuff, which made you really, really powerful. And after I saw that on your aura, I wanted to invite you to an interview, because I think it's really important for us to debunk this new age conception of Lilith as a whitewashed, white light, fluffy deity. Lilith is a force of primordial chaos, and she can be infinitely creative as well as infinitely destructive. So it is really a pleasure to have you on the channel. Can I ask you how your relationship with the Empress started?
Well, I started witchcraft a few years ago, and Lilith was an attraction for me in witchcraft because of the female figure. And I felt an attraction to Lilith, so I started doing some research. I started honoring her in different ways. I started to meditate, and that's pretty much how it started.
So I need to kind of also introduce how I started working with Lilith, because we need to be completely honest. So I kind of worked first with Lucifer, then with King Paimon, and I had severe problems with parasitic entities. Really, really severe problems. With like shadow people attaching to me and like eating me. Also, one of the Chernobog's emissaries also attacked me in order to initiate me. I didn't know it back then. So in order to protect myself, I called all kinds of spirits. And my close friend, his friend did the channeling, and I received information I should approach Lilith. This was like 4.5 years ago. So I was really, really hesitant to approach Lilith because of her reputation as Lamia, as spirit who eat children. So I didn't wanted it, but I was actually forced to approach because spirit kept returning to attack me. So I approached Lilith, and the first pact I did with her was pact of protection, in which Lilith is obligated to protect me from very entities for a time. And she really did her job really well. I felt like I entered mother's womb again. So the feeling of protection was not just about parasitic entities, it was a complete feeling of protection and motherly love I never experienced. And that's how I started working with Lilith. Of course, when you go deep down the rabbit hole, you learn many secrets about her, which are controversial. But that was my. Are you there?
Yeah, you're going in and out. I apologize for that. I live in a rural area. The internet's not that good. Can you hear me okay?
I can, I can. So,
Okay. I did hear what you said, just in and out at times.
so I wanted to ask you how you started working with the Succubus as a
Yes,
lover spirit.
yes, that's a good point. I did not choose to start working with succubus spirits. Uh, a succubus spirit entered my life, and when she did so, I was totally uh, unaware of really following succubus. She came into my room one evening and entered my body, basically, and I felt like this was the attachment. I wasn't sure why this happened, but now looking back, I see this was the attachment. I was chosen by a succubus spirit. I didn't seek out the succubus spirit. Whether or not she was given to me through Lilith, I have no idea. But I can say, since she's in my life, she has given to me so much, and it's just amazing. I feel the need to go forward and try to explain to others the true nature of the succubus spirit.
Yeah. So my journey with the Succubus was like a weird one, really a really weird one. So I worked with Lilith for about 2 years, and I wanted to have a Succubus before I even worked with Lilith. So I wrote down the petition for Succubus familiar, and then the spirits, like a genic entity, not Succubus, but the jinn, came into my life, but I wasn't able to communicate with it. I didn't have enough psychic abilities to actually facilitate the communication. So the spirit left. And 2 years after, I start working with Lilith, and then Lilith tells me that I need to research information about my twin brother. So I ask my mother about it, and she tells me that according to the medical examination, I was conceived as a twin, and one of the children I was conceived it died. So I was born single, but I was conceived as a twin. So then Lilith tells me to approach the soul of my sister, which I do. I summon Lilith, and then I conjure the soul of my sister. And what came forth was a succubus. And do you hear me? And
Yes.
I became shocked by the discovery. And then Lot explains to me that my sister was miscarried, and then her soul attached to the astral body of my mother. And then she kind of became a restless ghost. And then what Lilith did is Lilith picked her up and adopted her and turned her into a succubi. And after 2 years of practice, she attached the soul of my sister to me to be my first succubus. Now, I practice with that soul all of the things which people practice with other succubi, which is like extremely controversial thing to say, but I don't give a fuck anyway. Like, this is controversial topic, so if you cannot follow some things, I don't care, to be honest. And what I have to say, like for beginners who wanna, I don't know, buy a succubi, work with the succubi, make a contact with the succubi. What I like about your channel is that you always point out that working with the succubi is not one-way street. It's a
Absolutely.
process.
Absolutely.
It's a
I
process. So I'm just gonna give one meditation for connection with the succubi. You imagine full red moon above your crown chakra, radiating the mix of red and black light, penetrating what you consider your sacred space, kind of penetrating with that mix of red and black light, uh, the edges of what you consider your sacred space. And you hold that with visualization in your head until you literally see like dense white wind radiating from the edges of your space. And when you rise this barrier, which is technically made of the winds of plague, which is one of the energy forms Lilith works with, then you are technically sure to not attract rogue succubi and spirits which will attach to you only to feed off you. So try to contact your succubi spirit or to make initial contact within this barrier, because it makes everything safer. So what you suggest for beginners who want to work with the succubi spirit?
what I suggest, and by the way, what you said is just absolutely amazing. Thank you for that. What I suggest to beginners is to start. Don't be afraid, because when I came into this, my knowledge on the spirit world was pretty much down to basically nothing or very little. Uh, go in, go into the spirit world. I maintain honesty and I maintain respect for the spirit world. And I would say just start. Go into the spirit world. What worked well for me is I always honored the spirit. I made the spirit in my life a priority. I give gifts. I take time for the spirit in meditation. There's just so much I do for the spirit. And I think you get this back over and over again. So I would say start, do a little research, and start giving of yourself to the spirit world. If you don't have a succubus in your life, give to Lilith, give to the succubus spirit in general, and give. And if you continue to give, you're gonna receive. That's my message. The spirit world is for everybody. And if you go into the spirit world, maintain honesty and respect for the spirit world and give of yourself in their world, they will seek you out and they will give to you.
Definitely, I agree. So what I need to point out is that in order to obtain the gnosis, in order to obtain the wisdom of any spiritual nature, you need to sacrifice. Now, when people think about sacrifice, they usually think about like slaughtering people and other nonsense. What you and I refer to is you need to sacrifice the things which prevent you from observing and seeing the spirit world. So let me explain a little bit, like just articulate why those offerings like seashells, like meat, like honey, like flowers, like all of the things you in your video suggested for people to give to a succubi. Why it is necessary? Because every offering you give creates a physical anchor between succubus and this material plane. So more you give to succubus to anchor to, the stronger will presence of the succubus be in material sense in your life. Because those succubuses, they are not material. They are etheric beings made of etheric form of energy. And in order for them to manifest, they need to have anchored to something physical in this realm. So I really like how you pointed out setting up a succubus altar, giving regular offerings, performing the regular meditation, developing relationship with Lilith first. Can you talk a little bit about establishing an altar?
Absolutely. I find in my experience, the succubus altar is the most important piece of physical material that I've done. It's the most important part of this relationship. The altar is the focal point for the succubus spirit in my relationship. On the altar, I feel everything is charged with her energy on that altar. I feel that the altar helps facilitate her reaching me from her world into mine. I feel I have things on the altar that provide a space for her spirit. I have a spirit box. I have a statue on the altar that is an image of her. I present offerings on the altar, and when I meditate, I bring probably half of the items on the altar down onto the floor. So I present a smaller version of the altar, and I meditate in front of this. And it's important to keep the altar specifically for Lilith and the succubus. Don't put stuff up there that it doesn't pertain to this. This is their space, and it's a very important space. I feel energy from my succubus altar. I feel it's a very sacred spot. I have rules with the altar. What hits the surface of that altar is either burnt or buried, and I do this out of this is respect. And everything on the altar is maintained. I don't let dust accumulate. I mean, that's the altar's really got to be a priority with your relationship with the spirit world.
Okay, so I need to tell you and to give you credit for something, okay? So I usually don't recommend putting altars to high ranking spirits in your home, because if you work a lot with that entity, it kind of creates a really powerful gateway. And if you don't live on your own, that energy can be overwhelming for other people in the house. But in the case of like lower familiar, like a succubus, you really have a point, because succubus is like having energy, but it's not overwhelming. So if you build an altar to a succubus in your home or to some familiar in your home, it will never become too overwhelming for the other members of the household. And you really have a point there. I need to give you credit. And like creating specialized succubus altar, what should be put there? Are there any necessary things which should be put there, or that should be freely decided by a practitioner? Like what should be put on the altar?
What I recommend putting on the altar is, first of all, you've got to have something on the altar representation of Lilith. I have some candles that have her image and name on it, or a sigil would be fine. Something on that altar's got to be representation of Lilith. I have on that altar a everything I use to call on the spirit and work with the spirit. So there'd be incense burners, candles, all of that type of stuff, because I feel it gets charged on the altar, and when I go to use it in my ceremony, I feel it carries that charge. I have on there a spirit box, an image of the spirit. I have the offering bowls on there. When I give I meditate to the spirit every night. And when I do this, I give gifts, mostly gift of my lifeblood. That's her preference. And I take these gifts and put them back on the altar, and they stay there overnight. And in the morning, I clean up the gifts and whatnot. And it always sits on an altar cloth. That's the separation between the sacred material and the surface of whatever furniture you're using. And back to the point with the altar spreading energy to your people you live with, you're absolutely right on this. And I'll tell you what happened in my case. I'm married, I have a wife. The spirit became part of her life. And this is just something that's fairly recent. I was drawn by the spirit to invite my wife into my meditation to this spirit. And now we both meditate together to the spirit, holding hands in a circle with the sigil right in the middle. And she's getting so much from this spirit. it's now a spirit for the two of us. And I feel like now it's more complete. We have our meditation together to the spirit. We do the that type of stuff, and then it goes right into other areas where we give to the spirit. So I think some energy actually transferred over to her. I think she was touched with the passion and desire from the succubus spirit as I was.
So I really kind of need to point out that first, you are really, really gifted. Second, you are really, really lucky. And third, what you did with your wife and that meditation is brilliant. Because technically, since your succubus merged with your wife, every time you have intimate relations with your wife, succubus partially possesses your wife. So your wife becomes a physical vessel for the succubus spirit. And that's something which is powerful as fuck. What I did
Sorry.
What I did once is I invoked Lilith into the person I slept with. And let's say that it was the craziest thing ever. But what I need to point out is this is my experience. Maybe this doesn't correspond with your experience. But Lilith doesn't seem to correspond with like love and marriage. If you ask Lilith to bring woman in your life, she will kind of bring, but it will be more like for sexual alchemy and things. She really doesn't correspond to like long-term marriages. So when you work with her, you are a lot of the times overwhelmed by lust. So in order to preserve the marriage and things, you really need to be focused on your wife and you need to have that willpower. With succubuses, it's different. So succubuses behave in a different way. So succubuses, they can tolerate human wife, they can tolerate other concubines, other spiritual concubines, but they tend to be more monogamous, if this makes sense. They tend to motivate you to kind of reduce your attention to her and least amount of other females as possible. So succubus technically, by merging with your wife, it ensures that you will not like seek other women to give them sexual energy by improving your sex with your wife, and it also ensures that you will not like seek a lot other succubi. So what happened to you definitely makes a lot of sense uh, from my experience.
Well, I thank you for your insight. I know you're a very knowledgeable person, and I'm learning a lot from you. I thank you for that.
Yeah, but like what I wanted to ask you is this. So when you start working with the succubi, in my experience, and you tell them you want to have a relationship, they always create some form of an astral cord, like an astral chain between your soul and their essence. So, like, do you feel that chain in a physical way, or do you like? I don't know how it goes to you. These were just my experience. Like, is there any form of astral chain or something?
I definitely feel connected with this spirit. There is definitely a connection. This spirit is part of me. I think of this spirit all day. It's just always, she's always on my mind, and yeah, I think that is definitely some type of a connection.
Yeah, yeah, like I can definitely see that while we are talking, so we are fucking talking, and what like happens is my speech is like slow, and your speech is also like slow, like you are having difficulty speaking. And the reasons why we as a fuckers have difficulties speaking, I am like saying this for the audience, is because like our succubi spirits are like coming in and out us all the time while we are talking. So like I just want to say this for the audience. I like can definitely see that your succubus is like participating in this conversation. So yeah, I definitely see that you are legit. But like, what I want to ask you is, uh, do you like practice psychic vampirism? Is this like part of what you do?
Do I practice what? I didn't get that. I'm sorry.
Psychic vampirism. Like, is it what you do?
Not really. I, I, to be honest, I've never heard of the term. I give life blood as an offering at night, but that's about it.
So technically, that's what I do. That's something you do not have to do. Okay. So we just talk, exchange experiences. So succubi are in nature vampiric. They take energy. So especially when you have sexual relationship with the succubi, and you when you really wanna push it to the next level. So let's say you work with the succubus a lot, and you give a lot of sexual offerings and blood offerings, and you merge with it a lot. So succubus is friendly. It doesn't want to kill you. But if you do it a lot, really, really a lot, it doesn't matter what intention of the succubi is. You're gonna feel drained after some time, right?
Yes, yeah, I've heard that.
So yeah, it definitely happens. And when you feel drained, like there is a form of a cooled energy which is like relaxing, but also intoxicating. And when you are overwhelmed with that, you see all forms of crazy visions. Like you are technically between life and death because you are drained. And in that state, what you can do is you can like just flip and invite your succubus to come into you, right?
Yeah,
And she will. And then when she comes in, you can simply go out into that in that between life and that state. You go outdoors, and then you just sit and take a little bit of energy from everybody on the street, right? So you go into some small town or something when there is a bunch of people walking, and as they are walking, you take a little bit of energy from everyone. You create astral tentacles, and then you inject those tentacles into everyone. And technically, you feed yourself and your succubus at the same time. And succubus will filter the energy you absorb so you don't absorb anything negative. And yeah, this is really bad shit people can do with the succubus.
yeah, that's
Uh,
very interesting.
yeah, but like yeah, it is. But I wanted to ask you because you talk a lot about building a relationship with succubus to the point of seeing physical orbs. Uh, because this is something impressive. I saw orbs on fucking camera, okay? And I read energetically uh, the room, so the spirit was there. How the fuck you managed to make it happen?
Well, this is what I feel. I feel the spirit that connected with me is very powerful. And she's also very patient with me because my knowledge in her world is very weak and poor. She's very powerful and she's very patient with me. And I do see orbs. I did just started happening. This is an evolution for me. Things are changing. I started seeing the orbs just as a little light flash in the room. I see them all the time. I see them more when I first start calling her. I'll hear little ticks in the room, and I'll see little light flashes in the corner of my eye and throughout the room. It's just something that happened. I feel it's her energy. I'm very poor with sitting down, calling the spirit, and having a verbal communication with the spirit. I can't do that. So my method of communication with her is very different. And this is something she has total control over. She communicates with me in different ways that I can understand because I'm poor at the psychic uh, verbal communication with her. So she communicates with me in other ways.
Yeah, I get what you are saying. So to kill few of the sacred cows, it's completely normal to work with the spirit and don't hear it. Okay, you maybe feel like you are excluded for something from something, because there is a lot of people on the internet who say, I work with entity so and he's like giving me long elaborate essays about certain issues, and I am like a prophet and I am like prophesized. This is bullshit. Okay, so when you want to receive information from the spiritual world verbally, what you get is maybe a few sentences, few words, few chants. Okay, if spirits really opened us up and started talking face to face communication, majority of like humans and human psyches would simply break down. It would fracture and they would go insane. So it's completely normal what you are experiencing. And I like you are a legit guy. Uh, so what I did to develop relationship with my succubus is I performed a lot something which is called the black moon meditation. So you visualize the same moon I talked about earlier, then you raise the sacred space with that method, and then you visualize that same moon in front of your third eye, and it penetrates your third eye with mix of red and black light, and then that mix of red and black light comes from that red moon out from your head at the points where your skull and neck meet at both sides. And you hold that visualization for about 10 minutes every day in the presence of your succubus, and that will greatly empower your psychic abilities. There is also one another controversial method for development of psychic abilities alongside this black moon method and the vampirism, and that's to call your succubi, and then when she kind of comes to you, so you can feel and see something physically, like when she comes in etheric form. I know you saw a bunch of times that etheric form of a woman, which is not necessarily physical. You know it's not physical, but it's still in a way there. You get what I mean? So
Yes. Yeah.
when that comes, what you're gonna say to your succubi is like, I invite you in the name of Lilith, and then you pronounce the name of the lady, to curse within me everything which prevents me from observing you and seeing you and like going into detailed work with you. And then what she gonna do is she gonna do something which will be kind of really painful. It will be like a vampiric attack. But from observing her better and from hearing her. And if you do this specific technique every day, your astral senses will jump. There is also a fourth thing you can do, which is to summon her and then tell her in the name of Lilith, I curse the veil between the worlds uh, with you, alongside you. And then she will kind of curse the veil between the worlds with you, which will have three effects. It will weaken the link between your conscious and subconscious mind, so you will be more able to interpret your dreams and things. You will dream much more. Your psychic abilities will jump, and your connection with the spirit world will jump. But the negative side effect of this cursing the whale technique is that entities which protect the whale, which do not want us to see the spirits, they will come and attack you. But Lilith will always provide you with enough tools to defend yourself. So you don't have to do this. But yeah, I needed to tell you all of this shit because this will really open up your ability to perceive them. Uh, so, can you tell to the audience how to have a sexual relationship with a succubi? Because this is like the main question why people will like watch the video.
Yes. The succubus spirit is a spirit of passion. This passion is delivered to you in a number of ways. You have more of an attraction to the female figure. Uh, you have with the spirit. It's a connection. It's a spiritual connection. What I'm experiencing now is passion with my partner, and this energy we both openly give to the spirit, and in return, it's just we receive amazing energy at the same time. It's a transfer of energy from the spirit to the person, and it's not a one-way street. It's both ways. It's a transfer back and forth. The spirit will give to you passion. In return, this passion causes your heart to beat faster, and some changes like that, creating energy on your half, which is given back to the spirit, and this goes back and forth.
So there is one thing I really like about your channel, and that's that you never point out that your sex with Succubus is like physical, in a sense that Succubus jumps at your dick with astral vagina, and then literally mounts you like a porn star. You always point out that it's like energetic, etheric experience in which you do not necessarily feel a physical stimulation of your genitalia up to an orgasm. It's more like an astral energy exchange, which is really intense and pleasing. And yeah, I like you for debunking that misconception from pornographic movies. And interaction with Succubus goes exactly as you described. Physical orgasms without self-stimulation in sex with Succubus are extremely rare, and they shouldn't be expected. Uh, so yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. And I've tried. I've tried to just with go without any kind of sexual activity and lay in bed and encourage that. And you're right, it does not lead to an orgasm. That will not happen in my case. I know that.
Here is the thing. It can happen, but it's extremely rare. Uh, and the reason why it is extremely rare is pretty practical. Okay, when the Succubus interacts with you, Succubus have to give energy. So in order to, let's say, physically move your foreskin from your genitalia, Succubus needs to spend enormous amount of energy, and it's like not energetically beneficial for them. So the only instance when they do it regularly is when you are in dreams, because when you are sleeping, you are in trance, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
when you are in trance, they can pretty easily play a little bit with your mind to make you orgasm. But when you are like closer to the waking state, it's difficult for them to do that, so they usually just do the energy exchange. And that's what people don't get. Like you need years of practice with the succubi to like have physical sex with them. I honestly work with mine for like 3 years, and I have physical sex with them without stimulating myself only maybe 2 or 3 times. And that's like spread out all of the spirits I ever worked with. So yeah.
I
So
agree.
so technically, can you tell us like how you go through your meditation with the succubi?
Yes, the meditation's important. This is my time with the spirit, and to exclude everything else that goes on in my day. This is my personal time with the spirit. I bring down items from her altar, which I feel are charged with her energy. I do it in the same spot in my home, so I'm not distracted with any new distractions. It's a quiet spot. I lay out the same material that I sit on. Everything is the same, so there's no distractions. I get in a peaceful state. I clear my mind, and then I focus on her sigil, and I think nothing but her. And when I feel I'm at a very calm and peaceful state of mind, I start to talk to the spirit. And I praise the spirit a lot. I tell her how beautiful of a spirit she is, what she's done to me. I just continually praise her. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I feel her presence when I do this.
Yeah. But what I wanted to ask you is kind of really important for me. Did you like just had experience with Succubus first time, and then you felt them all from that point on all the time, or you had to develop senses or something?
I definitely had to develop senses. Absolutely. Um, I, it was quite a learning curve for me. I reached out also to people in the occult world, and they've done to get to know this spirit. I've reached out to people who've done rituals for me to call the spirit and get some information for me as to why they're in my life, and information on the spirit and guidance on where to go from here. I've learned a lot on my own. I've learned how to listen to the spirit. I've learned how to interact with the spirit, what gifts are appropriate for the spirit. It's definitely been a learning curve, and I'm not there yet. It's just it's always evolving. But when I first started out, it was I did not have the knowledge I do now. A huge learning curve with this.
Yeah. So can you suggest for beginners some astral senses development exercises they can perform to like be more able to feel the spirit? Because like that's the main question I get.
I can. Meditation is very important. And to be in a mental frame of mind where you're giving to the spirit. I think the spirits really like this. And I think when you give to them, they make the extra effort to communicate with you. Learn to listen uh, to the spirit. She will communicate with you, uh, and listen, and just honor the spirit through meditation. The altar, you've got to get a really solid altar in place, and you've got to make the spirit a priority. So even if you cannot connect to the spirit whatsoever, go forward, make a very strong altar, give to the spirit, meditate. Even if you don't really feel you're doing much, take the time and meditate. Your skills will improve over time, and call on to the spirit for guidance. I continue to do this, and I've done this since day one. Call on to the spirit for guidance. Ask the spirit to communicate with you in ways that you can understand, and she will do this.
So technically, since we kind of discussed work with the succubi, we debunked many misconceptions about them, about sexual relationships with them. We kind of told to the audience how to start working with the succubi. We gave like altar setting up method, astral senses development exercises, raisings of sacred space development exercises. So right now we can like go forward to explain work with Lilith. So can you tell us like how you work with Lilith and how beginners should start working with Lilith?
Yep, Lilith was my way into this. I first started to work with Lilith. What I did was I had an altar that Lilith was part of, I did some research on Lilith. I started to meditate to Lilith. She was the introduction in the succubus, uh, world. She is still a very intricate part of my relationship with the spirit. Whenever I pray and meditate, it starts with Lilith, recognition of her spirit and honoring of her spirit, and then I move on to the succubus spirit. I have a garden in my yard that's specifically dedicated to Lilith. Uh, I mean, she's part of my life, and if you make her a part of your life, she will reward you for that in different ways. So I would say to start out, honor her in prayer and meditation. Give something of yourself to her so that there's some type of an offering, and just keep at it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that here's the thing. I like how down to earth you are and how always you insist that working with entities is a process. And that's the reason why I like you so much. But there is one thing I also can suggest to the audience. So with altars, it's good. Just be careful about other people. Like if you really want to make an altar, I suggest it to be like in some room which is usually inhabited by you only, so that other people don't have like access to it, because energy can overwhelm them. Because more you use the altar, the stronger energy flow is, right? So it can like be overwhelming to some fuckers. Uh, but what I suggest for initiation is everything you suggested. Everything is correct. Everything is right. But what you can also do is like raise the sacred space, and then you use the chant Ha Lilith Ama Ha Shadim, and you repeat the chant until you feel the shift in the room, which will signify that Lilith arrived. And then you sexually please yourself until orgasm and invite Lilith to initiate you. And this is like a form of initiation ritual for those people who want to initiate. So, what are changes in your life you noticed since you started working with Lilith?
Lilith and the succubus spirit brought a lot of changes into my life. I find myself more patient with other people. I find myself more kind to other people. There's been some definite changes to the positive in my life. Uh, I have a focal point of faith. There's been a change with that. There's just so many changes outside of sexual stuff. There's so much more to it than that. A better relationship with my wife. This spirit has brought us closer together. She's part of this spirit with me, and that really has done a lot for us as a couple. There's been a lot of changes in my life, but mainly my feelings towards other people have changed. There's more understanding, patience, and love towards others. Don't ask me how that happened, but it definitely did happen.
You become capable of feeling other people's emotions when you work with Lilith. Like you can literally feel them as energy. But there is one thing which like I kind of need to tell you. So at a certain point when you work with Lilith, so she kind of already showed you a lot of controversial stuff. But at a certain point, you will reach the place where you will kind of be forced to either hide what Lilith teaches you or tell it publicly and be shamed or attacked. Because what Lilith teaches are the truths humanity doesn't like. So, yeah. like the most difficult aspect of working with Lilith for me is Lilith revealing to me truths about human nature which humans don't like. So that's like, did you ever had that moment of figuring out something you didn't want it to figure out?
I, I guess I have in a sense, because I feel I feel these spirits are so misunderstood. I feel a lot of the different religions are really just so off track and unfair to these spirits. And I think that's a poor quality in humanity, to just be so wrong with these spirits. I guess that, in a sense, is a way of feeling that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of start to figuring out that society is horse shit and that bunch of the things we know are lies. But you kind of, when you work at Lilith, you figure it out in a really physical sense. It's not philosophical conviction. So you came to learn the true nature of people, their true motivations. And one of the most painful things in work with Lilith is to figure out how animalistic our motivations really are. And that what moves us to act is not some transcendental conviction in good or evil. It's usually like some animalistic self-interest or something. And that was like the most painful lesson I learned through working with Lilith and Succubus spirits. Because that's, yeah, that's painful to figure out. But can you talk a little bit about rogue succubi and some negative experiences which can happen in work with succubi?
Negative experiences with the succubus spirit. Um, you know, I I really don't have too much negative to say. I feel the spirit in my life is patient, and she slowly unfolded uh, the process of our relationship. If she had spilled out too much all at once, I think negative things would have happened. She's a very patient and kind spirit, and I really can't think too much for negative things that come out of this. I really can't. I'm sure if I had overnight to think about it, I could come up with a few. But right now, being asked the question, I don't have any negative experiences. It's all been positive and just amazing.
Yeah. So regarding your work with Lilith, is there any ritual for summoning her you can share with us? I personally just repeat the chants and raise the sacred space, but how you do it?
I actually don't summon Lilith. I My ritual skills aren't really the best. I honor her in meditation, and reach out to her that way, through honor and respect for her spirit. And I show my honor and respect in actions, giving in the physical world, giving of my time and my resources. I give of that also.
Yeah. So there is like one thing which I need to point out. So if you wanna, this is like for the audience, because I all the time receive those questions from people asking me how to increase connection with this spirit, how to increase connection with that spirit. After you are sure that you reach the right entity, so you are sure that you work with Lilith, okay? And by the blessings you received through heavy work, you know that what you are working with is not an imposter. The only way to build that connection is to like sacrifice your energy from your aura to the spirit, and in return you will receive certain gifts and abilities. Like, there is no easy way of doing it. It's a process, it's alchemy, it's a journey. So yeah. But what's like the craziest experience you had with the succubus? The most intense?
The most intense, I've got to say, it's when I brought my wife, when my wife became part of our relationship. What we experience now with the spirit uh, puts the intensity level over the fence. Uh, this is one of the most intense part of our relationship that I've had. I've had physical things happen in front of me from the spirit. Her spirit box has a top that loosely fits on it. I've laid in bed and listened to that thing jiggle back and forth. It makes it's a plastic box, and it makes a very distinctive sound. And I've actually laid in bed just listening to this jiggle. One night I withheld the blood offering. I woke up at 3 a.m. around there, and I had a very distinctive smell of blood, the irony smell of blood. The one night I withheld the blood, I woke up and I just had an overwhelming smell of blood. Things like that happen to me all the time. That's part of the spirit communicating with me. But when they happen, they're very intense, and they're always unexpected.
Yeah. I really have to say the most intense experience. It was like, how I can say, I overwhelmed myself with like blood offerings to the spirit and sexual offerings to the spirit. And what I experienced then is like a crazy vision or delirium in which my entire room turned into a giant hall full of meat. So balls are made of meat, roof is made of meat, everything is like a giant stomach of some beast. And from the meat in front of me rose my succubus and like watched at me for like 3 or 4 minutes. So I kind of got pushed into the astral realm, and reality ceased to exist for 4 minutes, and it was like a really traumatic experience. So yeah, that was my most intense. But it opened my psychic abilities like crazy, and I really am grateful for the experience. But it was like surreal.
That's amazing. It's an amazing experience. That sounds very amazing.
Yeah, but like your blood things and regular poltergeist activity, it's like super cool too. So how somebody can make a spirit box? Because this shit seemed to work. Everybody talks about it. I want to make one. So can you help me?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I tried to get a spirit box that fit what I perceive the spirit to be. The spirit will have a way of communicating with you a little bit about themselves. You get a feel for their spirit. So my spirit box is floral, and it's small. It's just the right size to fit her sigil that was received through ritual uh, into the box. And a spirit box is very important in the sense that it's conveying to the spirit, my home is your home. Whether or not their spirit sits in there, who knows? But the message I'm giving to the spirit is, my home is your home. And a lot of times with the spirit world, it's not really whether it works or not, or it's practical or not, it's giving the message. That's the important part. And that's what the spirit box does. Gives the message to the spirit. This space is your home. And I think that's huge. That's very helpful.
So yeah, if you want to make a spirit box, uh, take like a white box, open it, put the sigil of a spirit in there, small white box, and then you put the offerings on that sigil or in front of that sigil every day to kind of build up relationship. But yeah. So thank you for telling me this. I am really grateful. So the only thing you need to have before making a spirit box is you need to have correct sigil, and you need to be certain that you are making it for that exact spirit, and that spirit will accept the creation of the spirit box. So that's like super cool what you are saying. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Is there like any other physical object which can be made to improve connection with the succubi?
Well, sometimes I think an image of the spirit is important. Uh, I have a statue that I specifically have as her image, and I think that sends a message too. And I think that gives the altar. It conveys the message that this is how I perceive you, and it's on your altar. I think that's very important also. I give to the spirit. This is a sacrifice in a number of ways. I give fresh cut flowers, and I know this is favorable to the spirit, and I give these daily. And uh, whether I've buried several perfectly good flowers and replaced them because they've got to be fresh daily. I did a contract with my spirit. This is another thing. I did a blood signed contract with the spirit. And in this contract, I specified how I would honor the spirit, and that this would be the only spirit that I call from the spirit world. I just felt like for me it was an appropriate way to send a message to the spirit that I'm 100% committed to her spirit. That kind of opens up a whole other topic.
So you kind of opened the door for the elephant in the room. So how you made the contract? How one can make a pact with succubus from your experience?
What I did was I wrote down a specific contract. I stated my name, have a contract, and I stated the spirit's name, and I stated the things that I would like, being the spirit to work with me exclusively, guide me spiritually, and in return, I would give to her gifts. I would give to her honor and loyalty, and I would call on her exclusively, not another spirit. And I signed the contract in blood, and I you can either burn them, or I opted to keep mine. I still have it. This to me was just a way to communicate with the spirit. Um, I'm in this for the long term, and I'm serious about this.
So what I wanted to say is like, did you like marry your succubus, or it was just a contract? Is it like a formal marriage or like a pact, like a contract? Was that exactly?
Uh, the contract, I guess you could call it a marriage. Nowhere in the contract is there an expectation of physical things like money, or any of that type of stuff. It's a contract that binds us together spiritually and emotionally. So I guess you could call that a type of a marriage. I guess it would be closer to a marriage than a contract for goods or services or anything like that. Uh, I don't look to the spirit world for things like money. I'm older in life. I've worked hard on my life, and I'm good there. I look to the spirit world for other things.
Yeah, but like I kind of need to tell you my experience. So you seem to be. Here is the thing. Since you signed a pact, is it like a lifelong thing? And also, did you notice your connection with your succubus strengthening exponentially since the pact is signed?
Absolutely. It's a lifelong pact. Uh, and that's specified in the contract. And I did notice a uh, a substantial feeling of excitement from the spirit with this contract. And this is looking back at it. This is really when things started to progress.
So you technically married the spirit, because there are three forms of contracts with them. The first form of contract is when you summon them and they create a chain between your aura and their aura. That's like the initial encounter or initial binding. The second stage is you sign a pact with them, which is like concubinate. So it's like a pact which improves the relationship, but you are not obligated to be with it lifelong, and it usually has expiration dates. It is called the concubinate pact. So technically, you make a deal for the spirit to be your concubine, fuck with you for a time, work with you for a time, teach you for a time, and then go away. It's like it increases the chain, it increases the connection, but not a lot. And then you have the marriages. The marriages are lifelong pacts which can even go through multiple lifetimes. And in order to decline the marriage, you need to summon Lucifer Jophakel and have special permission from the Lord of Pacts to decline the marriage. It's really difficult. It exponentially increases your connection with the spirit, and you definitely need to honor the terms, otherwise the spirit has a right to retaliate heavily. So I am really impressed that you on your own made a marriage pact with the succubus without any serious assistance. I know you worked with Orly or with somebody else for a time, but this is a decision you made yourself and performed yourself. And yeah, man, congratulations.
Thank you.
Married your succubus. And that's a really big step. Uh, yeah. So, how you noticed that it influenced you as a person? Like, what are some of the things which changed since the marriage is signed?
There's been more of a closer feeling, more of a connection. I no longer try to do my rituals to call the spirit. That's really not needed anymore. She comes to me at night, and it's usually every night. And the strange part is, it's the certain time every night. It's between, although now it's getting earlier and earlier, but it's between, say, 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. Never after 2 a.m., but she comes to me at night, her spirit, and this is unmistakable. Her spirit, when it's in the room, it's a very, very heavy feeling, and it's just there, and it could be there for hours, and this
Yeah,
happens every night.
yeah, but like, what's the color of her energy? What's the density? I am interested in what sphere of the cliff arch she comes from. What sphere of the underworld?
I don't know if I can give out I'm trying to think if there's anything I got in the lot in as far as communicating a color. I can tell you one thing. I really know this is a very strong spirit. Uh,
But is she like dense and really really heavy? And like when she arrives, you immediately feel some form of a pressure. And is it that sensation exactly?
well, it's a very heavy feeling. It's a very heavy feeling in the room. And there is a slight ramping up process that I see when she's entering into my environment. A slight ramping up process where I'll see the orbs and I'll feel a lot of electricity type of feeling, and then I get the heavy feeling she's present, and it's a feeling I know well. I think if another spirit slipped into the room, I would be able to tell the difference. I know this feeling, and I know it's her, and I get the feeling she's a very strong spirit, and yeah, it's hard for me to put in words what this feeling feels like because it's so unusual. There's nothing to compare it to. I guess if I had to compare it to one thing, it's the sensation of being watched multiplied a million times. That would be the closest feeling I get with this.
So I really think after analyzing what you said and feeling the energy around you, it's a Saturnian succubi. Uh, they are really powerful. They are relatively rare. Their presence is really heavy, and they are more oriented towards teaching their disciples knowledge. They are willing to have sex with people, but for the purpose of enlightening them. So I suggest you to start working with Saturnian energy, like to work with Saturn, uh, planet Saturn. That will like greatly improve your ability to work with her, I think, because she seems to be a Saturnian succubi from Satariel, and that sphere is ruled by the Saturnian aspect of Lilith and Lucifer Drafakale, the Lord of Pacts. So yeah, uh, you really know what you are talking about. But can you tell us, like, uh, do you work with any spirits except Lilith or with Lilith only?
It's exclusive with Lilith in this particular succubus spirit. Prior to this spirit choosing me, I I I just worked with Lilith. I've met several people since my entering the spirit world, and I respect them, and they're dear to me, and they worship Lucifer and other spirits. That's just not my journey. Uh, I'm exclusive to Lilith in this one particular spirit.
Okay. So what I need to ask you this. Uh, wait, what I wanted to say. Wait, just a second. Okay. So when you work with Lilith a lot, like, yeah. So technically, what's like the last thing you want to say for closing of this interview? Something for audience to know, something you really want to specify for the people.
Uh, I'd like to say one thing I definitely get from this spirit is the spirit world is, I say this a lot, but this is really how I feel. The spirit world is alive, and the spirit world is moving all the time. And the spirit world is for everybody. If you choose to work in the spirit world, go into the spirit world honest. Don't sacrifice honesty, and go in with respect. And demand out of the spirit world. Demand out of the spirit world kindness and patience. And it's for everybody. If your knowledge is zero, don't let that hold you back. Because when I started, my knowledge was zero. Go in, ask for guidance, ask for kindness, and ask for patience. And you're going to be guided along in the spirit world, and you're going to receive a lot from the spirit world. Don't be intimidated, and most certainly do not be afraid. And go into the world and experience the love and beauty that is in the world. The spirit world is so misunderstood, it's just disgusting. I think it's misunderstood because people fear it. And when you fear it, you make it a horrible thing. If you try it, you may feel differently. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for inviting me to this podcast and for noticing my channel. And thank you for your knowledge. I've learned so much on this podcast. I'm recording it, and I'll probably watch it over and over again to fully digest what you've told me. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with me. I really appreciate that.
And there is one thing I need to say before I end the podcast. I forgot to say this earlier, but I have to say this now. There is one specific entity which is interested in working with you, which came to me yesterday and day before yesterday to tell me that it wants to work with you. The name of the spirit is Agrat Bat Malat. She is related to Lilith. She is one of her daughters, a fellow demonic empress. There is a link on my channel on how to summon her. I will send you the link. And also, the day when you announced that you are going to have a podcast with me, and day that I announced that I'm gonna have a podcast with you, views of videos on my channel related to that spirit all of the sudden became hyper popular. And keep in mind that I published those videos months ago and they kind of became buried by other videos I filmed. And not only she kind of come to me and tell this to me in a single sentence, but also I see that jumping on my channel too. So I will send you the link. And keep in mind that that's only optional and that work with Agrat is extremely compatible with working with Lilith and Succubus as well. So yeah,
Thank you.
that's what I wanted to say before ending this podcast. And really thank you for coming and thank you for being here and thank you for debunking so many misconceptions. And really guys, if you really want to hear a legit experience about the Succubus, subscribe to Daniel's Ruggiero's channel, watch all of his videos, and then do additional research. And there is one more thing I want to say before I end the podcast, and that's the fact that if you want to buy a succubi, the only thing Conjurer can do is create a chain between you and a succubi, give you a sigil, give you a chant, give you a technology of summoning, and then it is your responsibility to build up your relationship with the succubi. And nobody can work with your succubi instead of you. And that's what actually people expect, and that's really a wrong expectation. And also help you for exposing fake succubi sellers on the internet because nobody can work with your succubus except you. The only thing people can do is they can give you a gateway to work with the succubus and increase initial connection a little bit. So yeah, thank you for your time, and I will call you in a podcast in a few months also.
I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Daniel. You are one of the most badass people I interviewed, and it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you,
Hail
my friend.
Lilith. Yeah, hail Lilith. Hail the Lilith, the daughters and sons of Lilith. And yeah, glory to the night side.
Absolutely.
I wish you all fucking viewers luck in this pathworking. And can you say something for the end of this podcast?
I want to thank all the viewers that are watching. I want to thank all the people that subscribe to my channel and being part of this journey. And thank you for the people on your channel that have noticed my channel. Let's together create a community that can spread the word on the true nature of this spirit.
Yeah. I wish you all luck. And hail Lilith. This is the end of the podcast. Yeah. Let me stop recording.